Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Sanjana and I make videos on art and craft, DIYs and decor and travel. If that's something you're interested in, do subscribe to my channel. I promise I will never disappoint you with my content. This is part 2 of the Learn to Decoupage series. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll leave the link in the description below. Do check it out if you want a complete understanding of this technique. This time we are going to take our project a notch higher. In part 1, we used only ModPodge to stick our decoupage paper on the surface we were decoupaging on. But in this video, we are going to add two new materials, chalk paints and gesso. Gesso is going to be our primer with which we are going to prepare the materials to apply the chalk paints on. And chalk paints is what gives decoupage projects a more artistic feel. You'll find out throughout this video. So for our first project today, I was looking around the house to find objects on which I could decoupage. That's when I came across these plates, which I was planning to discard because I don't really like the design. But then I thought, why not decoupage it and turn it into decor? And for my second project, I decided to get myself some MDF table mats from Amazon because the white cloth ones that I bought are no longer white. So shall we start? Here's a quick look at what we'll need for today's project. One or more ceramic plates, a decoupage napkin, Deco Magic glue and varnish, a few dabbers, gesso, chalk paints, a paintbrush, a palette and a place to keep a little water. First, we're going to apply a coat of gesso on the ceramic plate, which will act as a primer to prepare the surface for decoupaging. I'm using a sponge brush to apply one coat of gesso, which is sufficient on this plate. You can use a paintbrush instead, but it's just so much fun using the sponge brush. I'm decoupaging 3 plates, so I'm repeating the same process thrice over, applying a layer of gesso on the ceramic plates to prime them. I'm having so much fun doing the gesso. I wish I could just do this all day. And there, my 3 plates are ready now. Now gesso takes time to dry, about 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm going to use that time to apply gesso on the table mats as well and get them ready. Here too, I had to repeat this process 6 times for the 6 mats. But don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with that. The gesso has now dried and I can start painting the base coat on my plates. For that, I'm using a chalk paint from Little Birdie, Snow. That's the name of the shade. Base coats for decoupage are best in shades of white for the design to show clearly. Again, I'm doing the same thing 3 times, applying the base coat of paint on all 3 plates, and then I'm keeping them aside to dry. In the meantime, our table mats have dried and we can apply the base coat of paint on them. For the mats, I'm using a shade of chalk paint called Buttermilk, which has a slightly yellow touch to it as compared to Snow. The reason for applying gesso on any surface is so that any color we apply over it appears brighter. Try painting anything without gesso and then with gesso and you'll see the difference. And now it's finally time to use our decoupage napkins. Decoupage napkins are much thinner than decoupage paper. It's quite difficult to separate these layers and takes some patience. Starting from the corners is always a good idea because usually they come off more easily from there. And once you find a small separation, the rest of the sheet comes off quite easily. In the last project, we cut the decoupage paper to size with a paper knife and stuck it with glue on our surface. But with decoupage napkins, that's just not possible. Decoupage napkins are so delicate they will tear at the slightest touch. So this technique works best. Take a thin paintbrush and outline the part of the design that you want to use. And while the paper is still wet, gently, very gently, pull the two parts of the sheet apart. So this is how I want to place the design on my plate. I'm just checking to see it fits. It does. Now are you ready to decoupage? This time I thought I'd use Deco Magic by Little Birdie, which is an alternate to ModPodge, to see if it works as well. It also comes in two finishes, matte and gloss. We'll use matte. I'm spreading the Deco Magic glue with my sponge brush all over the plate and then gently placing the design on it. As soon as the napkin touches the surface, it gets stuck. You don't get a second chance, so place it carefully. We have 3 plates and 2 designs of each, but luckily 2 of the designs, the smaller ones, can be clubbed together in one plate. So that way I can use all 4. Actually, I do have 4 of these ceramic plates, one for each design. But there's a rule of decor that things look good in odd numbers like 3, 5 or 7. That's why I took only 3 of them. Like in the first case, I'm repeating the process of outlining the design I want with a thin brush and water and gently separating that part from the rest of the sheet. Once again, it's time to decoupage. After spreading the Deco Magic glue on my plate, I'm gently placing the designs and trying to avoid any air bubbles getting stuck inside while I stick them on the plate. Decoupage projects only look complete when it is not obvious that you have cut out a piece of paper and stuck it on a surface to decorate it. And for that, we are going to use chalk paints. I've tried to pick shades that are closest to the color of the napkin. So we have tattered lace and French rose. I just love how fancy they get with these names. I'm pouring a little of each onto my palette and I'm starting to paint the white part of my plate. See, it's matching more or less, isn't it? While painting, always paint a little bit over the edges of the napkins, trying to blur it with the rest of the plate. That way, the edges won't be so visible and your design will look seamless. Now, is our plate looking complete or not? You tell me. Same process again for the second plate. Now, because this design is smaller and to one side, I feel like the right side of the plate is looking a bit empty. I'm really tempted to write something here, but I'm too scared to ruin it. Would you write something there? And what would it be? Let me know in the comment section, and if I like it, maybe I'll add it in later. And now it's time for some deco magic. Not as glue, but as varnish. This is very important because this varnish protects decoupage projects from any kind of damage, especially water. Because after all, you used a paper napkin, didn't you? Because the colors are so light, sometimes you might think, are these painted at all? But if you remember, when the design was stuck on the white plate, you could clearly see the edges. And now it completely looks as though somebody has painted this pretty design on each of the plates. That's the magic of decoupage. It's a good idea to dilute the varnish with water while applying, otherwise it may be a bit thick and cause wrinkles on the surface of your napkin, which won't look nice. And now we're going to leave these to dry and move on to our second project. Do you like the final look of my plates? If you do, press the like button and let me know. Are you tired? We are not done yet. We still have our second project left. Why don't we take a quick break while I set up my desk for my second project? Here's a quick look at what we'll need. Decoupage napkins, MDF table mats, gesso, chalk paints, dabbers, deco magic, paint brushes, a palette, and a place to keep a little water. These decoupage napkins came in sets of 4 with 3 of the same pattern, just in a different color. And since I plan to make 6 table mats, I bought 2 sets of these. This step is familiar, right? Now you know how to separate the layers of a decoupage napkin. The next step is a little more complicated this time. We are not sticking the napkin as is on the table mat, but instead removing each design separately. You can stick the napkin as is on the table mat, but that might feel more like you've wrapped the mat with a paper. It may not result in the seamless decoupage effect we want. This is not as easy as the first project, where we took out our design and threw away the rest of the sheet. Here we need to use the entire sheet, so while tearing out one design, we need to be careful not to damage the other ones. It's okay if a leaf or a flower gets a bit torn while tearing out the pieces, because once decoupaged, it will merge in with the rest of the design and look okay. With the first napkin, I was quite slow and a bit scared too, but with the second one, I got better. One thing you must remember is to make blunt the straight edges of the napkin, like this. We don't want any straight edges in decoupaging. Another reason why we don't use scissors for this. There, all my pieces have been separated and are ready to be stuck on the mat. I'm trying to place my pieces on the mat to see how to arrange them before applying the glue. Finally, I decided I'll start with the large pieces and then fill in the gaps with the small ones. Here the color of the napkin and the chalk paint that we've used, buttermilk, are an exact match. See how perfectly the napkin blends in with the mat, as though it's painted on it. This would not have been the same had we just stuck the napkin as is on the mat. The main thing I'm trying to do while sticking these pieces is to avoid any air bubbles and wrinkles. That ruins the decoupage effect like nothing else. Again, because Deco Magic, like ModPodge, dries very fast, I had applied it on only half the mat, and now I'm applying it on the other half. And then I'm continuing the same process. This is extremely painstaking. You have to be very gentle and careful while placing down each design and while pressing it onto the mat, because it tears too easily. And while pressing down the edges of each piece, they tend to tear or get stuck to your fingers because of the glue on them. I'm literally telling myself to be patient and slow all this time. After sticking the large pieces, I'm filling in the smaller ones now. There's no right or wrong way. Wherever you see a gap, you try and see which piece fits and stick it there. Oh no, one piece got left out. No problem. I know exactly what to do with that. but you'll have to wait till the end of this video to find out. Any guesses what I'm going to do with that leftover piece? Tell me in the comment section what you think I'm going to make of it. We are far from done, as you can see. Firstly, I'm starting by smoothing the edges. In many places, the napkin extends beyond the edge of the table mat. So I'm applying a teeny bit of glue and sticking them down. Secondly, there are many edges of the napkins on the mat which are not stuck down properly. So I'm using my thinnest brush to apply a little glue under them and sticking those down as well. And thirdly, some pieces of the napkin overlap each other. So I'm removing the extra bit of paper with my thinnest brush once again and some water. What you're seeing here is at 4x and sometimes 8x the speed at which it was shot. So you can imagine how much time this actually takes to do.
2,000 years later.
My eyes are paining, my back is paining, and I am totally out of time. But the good news is that at least we are done with one. Oh my god, there is no way that I'm making 6 of those. Now a final coat of chalk paint is not required for this mat because the colors are so exact. But for the pink and the blue napkins, this is needed. We had to paint the base a light shade or the napkin designs would not show. But now that we've pasted the napkins, the color difference is clearly visible. And we need to paint the background to match with the color of the napkins. Else we won't get that decoupage effect, will we? We are finally done with the entire set. No. As you can see here, I gave up midway. There is no way that I could have finished all of them. But at least I am done with one of each kind. Each one took me 2 to 3 hours at least. So let's spray those with a coat of varnish and leave them to dry. Now it's finally time to show you guys what I did with that leftover piece of decoupage. I didn't plan this, but sometimes the unplanned things add that special touch and make our picture look complete, don't they? We are done with all 6 coasters, but table mats, we are done only with 3 and the other 3 are work in progress. And with that, we are done for today. And you know what time it is? It's lunchtime. And I'm gonna use my new table mat. I'll see you in my next video.